ज्ञानाञ्जनस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming today. And today I'll speak on this topic of trying to understand how what we believe affects how we live. I talk about morality, spirituality. Both of them refer to what are the values that we believe in. And then responsibility, how that affects how we live. So why we choose the way we do and how we can make better choices. So I'll start by a 4-quadrant visualization of what I'm going to speak. And then we'll talk about different kinds of values. And then I will talk about how spirituality and morality can nourish each other. So let's begin. So basically, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is one of the prominent spiritual teachers in our tradition. And he talks about how there are different kinds of people. And he places broadly them in 4 categories. So if you look at this diagram, on the bottom you see morality, that's the x-axis, the y-axis is spirituality. And some people may have low or no morality. Some people may have low or no spirituality. So the first quadrant are people who are immoral materialists. So no morality, no spirituality. The second is people who are moral, but they have no spirituality. So they are moral materialists. Then there are people who seem to be spiritual, who belong to spiritual activities, but they also behave in improper ways. So that is, they are immoral spiritualists. And then there are moral spiritualists. Now, before we move any further, what do I mean by morality and spirituality? So morality, we're not talking about being holier than thou, moralizing, and just looking down on others. We're talking about right now, and we'll go deeper into morality later, but just what is proper behavior? You say honesty, courtesy, sensitivity, reliability. These are normal attributes that we look upon in people. If people have those attributes, we respect them. So spirituality refers, so that's what I mean by morality. And spirituality refers to an understanding that there is something more to life beyond this life. An understanding that we have a spiritual essence. There is a soul, and then there is a supreme spiritual reality, God, and we need to live with it. That life has a purpose beyond this life. So, we would normally think that somebody who is spiritual will also be moral. However, nowadays, I saw this slogan in America when I was in a preaching program. what you believe. Show me how you behave. What happens is, many people can claim to have many grand beliefs. Oh, I believe this, I believe that. And if people are a little clever, then you can justify any belief that you want. And you can come up with any kind of intellectual rationalization for any belief. So people tend to be a little skeptical. Okay, you may say, I believe in God, I believe in this, I believe in that. But most people, they don't really care about what you believe in. They look at how you behave. So you might speak, somebody might speak very big things, but if they are holier than thou, they are judgmental, they are insensitive, then you say, I don't care for such people. So I saw a slogan behind a car in America. It says, "Oh God, please save me from your preachers." Now, normally God saves us through our preachers. But some preachers are hell and brimstone kind of. You're going to go to hell, this, that. If they're very judgmental, then what happens? I don't want anything to do with such people. So what happens is, people, they don't care so much about our beliefs. They look at our behavior. So to frame that same diagram in terms of this belief and behavior, let's look at it now. So by morality broadly, I mean the right behavior. And by spirituality, I mean the right beliefs. We understand what is the nature of reality. So if you look at that way, so if somebody has neither the right behavior nor the right belief, somebody is unclean, somebody is rude, somebody is deceptive, they cheat, they steal, then what happens? We are repelled by that person. I don't want to have anything to do with that person. So that's the first part. If somebody's behavior and beliefs both are improper. Now, if somebody will go up the quadrant, if somebody's beliefs are right, they say, I believe in soul, I believe in God. But then they behave in improper ways. They are self-serving, they are insensitive, they are manipulative. That happens, then you believe all that stuff and then still you act like this. Then at that time, such people, they don't repel just from themselves, but they repel people from spirituality also. In fact, atheism has spread quite a bit over the last 2 centuries, and in the last few decades, it has had some upsurge in the Western world. And the biggest reason for the upsurge of atheism, or we could say non-spirituality, is just theist itself. If those who are believers, they start becoming very judgmental, they are very arrogant, and then what happens? I don't want to do anything with such people. Or if they are immoral, if they behave improperly, then people get alienated by it. So that's, if somebody's behavior is improper, even if the beliefs are proper, it doesn't work properly. On the other hand, if somebody's behavior is proper, but their beliefs are improper, somebody is kind, courteous, gentle, so then what happens? Everybody, we feel nice being such a person, and we get attracted. So if somebody is a materialist, then what happens? People get attracted to materialists. If somebody is an atheist, now atheism and materialism are not necessarily the same. Materialism means matter is all that exists. Atheism is God doesn't exist. So atheists can be materialists, but it's not necessary that all materialists are atheists. So if somebody is in this category, then how they behave is what attracts people. And then it attracts not only to them, but it attracts them to what they believe also. So in general, we look at people and we don't know what people's beliefs are, but we look at their behavior. And based on the behavior, then we try to understand, then we decide whether I want to know more about this person. If their behavior looks good, then we start wanting to know, okay, what makes this person tick? What is their worldview? What do they believe? So the best is the fourth category, where a person has the right beliefs and the right behavior. So then what happens is people are attracted by the right behavior, and then they get attracted to the right beliefs also. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 12th chapter is called as Bhakti Yoga. And the 12th chapter, from verses, it's one of the shortest chapters in the Gita, just 20 texts. But texts 13 to 20 all talk about qualities. And Krishna is talking about such devotees are very dear to you. And when we look at the list of the qualities that he describes over there, there is not a single devotional quality described. Devotional quality means, oh, they come and worship me in the temple, they chant my holy names, they study the scriptures regularly, they do all these things are not described. If somebody is a devotee, it's understood that they are doing these things. But what Krishna describes is in terms of behavior. He describes how Advishta Sarvabhutana Maitra Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Samadukha Sukha Kshami Santushta Satatam Yogi Yatatma Durnishchaya Mayapittamano Buddhi Yomad Bhakta Same Priyaha. So he says, best person is non-enemies, Advishta. Sarvabhuta is friendly towards everyone. Maitra Karuna Evacha, and kind. Nirmamo Nirahankara, they are not too possessive, they are not too egoistic. Samadukha Sukha Kshami, and they stay equipoised. They're not too moody. They go into emotional extreme. They're still. And Kshami, they're forgiving, they're tolerant. So basically, what Krishna is recommending, now at one level, anybody is devoted will be dear to the Lord. But Krishna is saying, if somebody is devoted and exhibits all these behavioral qualities, and such devotees are especially dear to him. So the point is that Krishna is not just recommending that we have the right beliefs. He's also saying that we need to have the right behavior. So if we are ourselves to practice bhakti, and we are to inspire others to practice bhakti, then we need to try to be in the fourth quadrant, where we are having both the right beliefs and the right behavior. Now a question might come over here, that if somebody is a devotee, then won't they naturally behave properly? So here, we need to understand there's a difference between functional values and foundational values. Functional refers to how we function in the world. Foundation refers to what we think is the foundation of reality, what we think is the ultimate goal of life. What are the ultimate values and purposes? What are the ultimate meaning of life? So it's like, suppose somebody is lost. Somebody is driving a car. They don't know how to drive a car, and they don't know where to go. Now they are really lost, but they will create a mess for others. Now, somebody gets a map and comes to know the right destination. That's good. But just because they know the right destination doesn't necessarily mean that they immediately know how to drive well. They may still cut across lanes, they may sometimes go too fast, too slow, they may brake suddenly, they may honk at others unnecessarily. So basically, the idea is that knowing the destination is the foundational value, it's the ultimate value. And knowing how to drive is the functional value. So, Krishna talks about the functional values in terms of the three modes of material nature. The three modes are goodness, passion and ignorance. Sattva, rajas and tamas. So how we function in the world, that is determined by the modes. But what we believe about ultimate reality, what we consider as the ultimate purpose of life, that that is not intrinsically related to the modes. It is somewhat related, but somebody can be in goodness in the sense that they live a regulated life, in the sense that they are kind in their behavior. But somebody can be in goodness in terms of their behavior, but they might be atheist. And they can use their intellect to justify their atheism. One of the greatest ironies of the last century is that the person who caused probably more deaths than anyone else, or on the top list, Hitler. Hitler was a vegetarian. So he wouldn't kill animals, but he killed human beings. And not just one or two, millions of human beings he caused their death. So what happens is that it's when we want to understand where people are coming from, how people are, we can't just look at one attribute. So somebody might be in goodness in the sense that their behaviors are regulated, but they might be atheistic. They might reject God. And conversely, somebody might be in ignorance in the sense that the way they live, the way they conduct themselves, that's all completely unregulated. But they might still have some spiritual beliefs. Now, ideally, our spirituality should change our modes and uplift us. But it may not happen immediately. So, with this background, I will talk about a few incidents from the scriptures. We just had Gaur Purnima. So there is a instructive story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which illustrates the importance of morality along with spirituality. This comes in the Antilila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's a story of associate of Lord Chaitanya named Gopinath Pattanayaka. So Lord Chaitanya lived in Puri during the latter half of his life. And when he was in Jagannath Puri, at that time, the king, at that time Pratap became captivated by his purity, by his effulgence, by his devotion. And the citizens over there, but those who were respected, they all started coming and submitting to him and becoming devoted to him. So now one of the older citizens over there, Bhavananda Rai, and he had multiple sons. One of his sons is Ramananda Rai, and Ramananda Rai became a very close associate of Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had very intimate discussions on exalted spiritual topics with Ramananda Rai. Now Ramananda Rai was on behalf of Pratap, the governor of a big province. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him that you come, I'm in Puri, come and stay with me. So he did that. And then gradually the whole family got close to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he had a brother whose name was Gopinath Pattanayaka. Now, although Gopinath was also devoted to the Lord, but he sometimes resorted to some ethical shortcuts. So he was like a landlord on behalf of the king. So he would collect taxes and then he would pass them on, a portion of them to the king. So in general, that was the system in India at that time. Now, when whoever ruled, basically there was a structure of administration where there were landlords, and the landlords, they worked with the local villagers. And even if the top power changed, unless the kings were really brutal and murderous, it wouldn't affect the common society so much. So these landlords were expected to give a certain amount of revenue to the head of the king. Now Gopinath Pattanayaka had fallen behind in giving those revenues. So then the king Pratap had a son, Purushottam Jana. And this Purushottam, he was a bit arrogant. he had the sense that I'm a prince and people should respect me. So he found out that Gopinath has not paid his dues, and he told the king. He was looking after overall revenues for the king. He said, so what should I do? He said, you do the needful and get the revenues for me. So he confronted Gopinath. He said, you're not paying your dues. He said, okay. He said, I don't have this money right now. So I have got some horses. So I've got some special breed horses and I will give them to you. You will take the appropriate rate for them, and then gradually, as I get more money, I will pay the remaining horse. So then they went to examine the horses. So normally in the material world, what happens is when people interact, say a seller wants to get as much money as possible from the buyer, and the buyer wants to give as less money as possible. And then depending on who is more anxious to make the transaction. If the seller is eager to sell, then the buyer has the upper hand. The buyer can give low price also and will take it. If the buyer is anxious to buy, so if you see some house and we are anxious to buy the house, then what happens to the buyer? The seller might hike the price. So in this case, Gopinath had to pay. So what Purushottam did was, Purushottam gave a shockingly low value for the horses. Now when Gopinath heard this, he became furious. And what happens is that anger often indicates that something is wrong. But anger rarely indicates what is wrong. When we feel angry, there is something wrong over there. That's why we get angry. So if something wrong is happening and we don't get angry, we don't feel anger. Then something is wrong with us. If some outrage is happening, some atrocity is happening, we should feel that is wrong. But if you just act on it, that can also be a problem. So anger indicates that something is wrong, but it doesn't always indicate what exactly is wrong. Anger doesn't urge us to do something, but often it urges us to do the wrong thing. So now this Purushottam, he had an idiosyncrasy. That was, whenever he would talk, what happened? His neck would move like this. Some people have a behavioral pull. It would move in one direction. So that is just the way he is genetically or whatever he was. So then, yes, Gopinath, he got angry. And his anger was justified. But in his anger, he said, this price is unacceptable. My horses don't move their head like this. Now, when he spoke this, Purushottam got furious. Generally what happens, everybody has some sore spots, some weak points. So, now we have to be careful that if we agitate them in the sore spots, they might overreact. So, now of course some people may use that knowledge to manipulate others. I was with one friend who is a psychotherapist, and he told me that there is a joke among psychotherapists. Those who psychoanalyze people, he says, a stranger is just someone whose emotional weakness you don't yet know. So some people, when they are interacting with other people, they just try to find out what is the weakness. And then as soon as I know the weakness, I manipulate it. But actually, exploiting others' weaknesses doesn't make us strong. It is overcoming our own weaknesses that makes us strong. But sometimes overcoming our weakness is much more difficult. So people take the shortcut and they say, I just exploit the other person's weakness. So anyway, when Gopinath did this, Purushottam got angry. And what happened was, in his anger, he just had this up. Gopinath arrested. And he had him arrested, and then he went back. He sent a message to the king saying that Gopinath is not paying his dues. Then the king sent back a message, do what it takes. You should recover the news for me. And the king's message was basically functional, just do what it takes. But Purushottam took that as a justification and he said, I will have you executed. So when something wrong has been done, it's justice, if something wrong has to be done, justice needs to be done. But justice needs to be done. Justice should be in proportion to the wrong, not in proportion to the anger we feel about the wrong. So that's what happens is, that sometimes if we have only one person who is the absolute authority, and what happens? And so they can just abuse their power. So that's what at that time there was a system of execution. That was, you had a changa, you had a person suspended by a rope from the top, and then there was swords. And then the person would be released, the rope would be released, the person would fall, and they would fall to a painful death. So now in today's world, this is quite barbaric. We kill people like this. But the idea in the past was that justice should not just be done, justice should be seen to be done. When some serious wrongs are done and people see visibly the consequences of those wrongs, then what happens? And that acts as a deterrent for others. Now in today's world, most countries have rejected capital punishment. They don't really, no matter what the crime is, we will not kill you. Now it is true to some extent that because the justice system can be manipulated, wealthy people can get very good attorneys, and then often what happens is the wealthy people get away, even if they have done serious crimes, and poor people, they get punished. So the idea is that if somebody is executed, it's like an irreversible punishment. And later on you find that they were framed. Then what can you do about it? So that's why the idea is don't give capital punishment. Now that understand the justice system can be manipulated and rigged, that is true. But at the same time, some crimes are heinous. And when heinous crimes are there, proportional punishment is required. So in most traditions across the world, capital punishment has been there, but it is for severe crimes, extremely severe crimes. So now but today what has happened is, at least in America, I don't know how it is in New Zealand, when execution is to be done, there are different ways to do it. So in India, still, what is the way of execution? The Pati Soto, as they say in movies so many times, and you hang the person. So in America, they earlier had an electric chair. And the person was getting electrocuted, and they die. But that can look very ghastly. So now they have created a 3-step system, where first, before a person, they give poison, but before the person is given poison, a person is given sleep medicine. The person peacefully goes to sleep. And then, after that person is given a muscle relaxant. And so that way, and then the third is, they are given a poison. But the idea is, death appears to be very peaceful. So, normally when we die, there's some shock. So, the person has gone to sleep and muscles are relaxed. So, death appears to be just like a non-event. So now, sometimes in the name of political correctness, the principle that justice should not just be done, justice should also be seen to be done. That is downplayed. So anyway, the point is that although this can seem barbaric to us, it had a purpose to deter people from wrongs. And in this case, Gopinath was being punished disproportionately. He was a respectable authority in the royal administration. And yes, he had fallen back on the news, but that didn't require killing. So then his friends panicked. They didn't know what to do. Now they thought that it's the king's son. So even if we go to the king, will the king listen to anything against his own son? They wondered what to do. Some of them ran to Lord Chaitanya. They knew that his family is close to Lord Chaitanya. So they went to Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya heard the knock. Why is he being put on the changa? He said, okay, he has been excellent in the job, not paying the dues. He said, if he works for the king, he should give the king the money. He cannot misappropriate the king's funds like that. So Lord Chaitanya says over there, the king's wealth is like the Brahmana's wealth. It is secret. If a Brahmana does spiritual welfare for society, and a king is expected to do, Kshatriya is supposed to do material welfare for society. So he said he should not, if he has done that, he is to be punished for that. I cannot intervene in this. Lord Chaitanya seemed to adopt a non-interventionist kind of approach. And then some more people came running and he so told that actually now the changa is not only put on the changa but they are about to release the rules. And then Lord Chaitanya said that, oh, what can I do about this? This is the matter of the political administration. And if somebody has done wrong, they should be punished for that wrong. I can't do anything about this. And then some more people came running, oh, he'll be killed immediately, now please do something. So Lord Chaitanya said, what do you expect me to do? Do you expect me to go to the king and beg from him? He said, I am a renunciate. I have renounced the world and I don't make myself involved in money matters. So there's nothing I can do about this. And then, at that time, the other devotees also came, some of his older Paramanand Puri and other elders came. And Lord Chaitanya said, I came to Jagannath Puri to focus on remembering Krishna and developing love for Krishna. But if people disturb me with all these mundane disturbances, then he said, I will not stay here. He said, I go to Avalanath, which is a nearby place, and I will stay over there peacefully. I didn't renounce the world to get involved in all these things. So then the associate said that actually it was neither Gopinath nor his family members, they sent all these people. Those people came just out of concern for Gopinath. They all know that their family is close to you and they all care for him. So the Lord said that I can't do anything. But tell them to pray to Jagannath. Lord Jagannath is the deliverer of everything. Now, as the devotees went to Jagannath and people went to Jagannath and started praying over there, then what happened? The place where all this was happening. Now, even Purushottam, he knew that he had gone a little too far. So he was threatening, but he also wanted that this money should be recovered. So he was delaying things and offering and giving more and more threats. So then there was another minister in the king's administration who was passing by. And he said, hey, what is this? Is Gopinath being put on the changa? He immediately went to the king and reported. And the king said, I didn't authorize execution. I only wanted the recovery of the dues. He said, tell him to stop immediately. And immediately he went and gave the message. And then they stopped it. They stopped it. And then after that, the main priest of Jagannath Puri's temple, who was also close to the Lord Chaitanya, and who was also close to the king. So king came to meet him, and at that time, he told the king that, he asked him what was the news, he said this happened, and Lord Chaitanya was very disturbed by this. And Lord Chaitanya is saying that if people disturb me like this, then I just leave here and I go to Avalanath. And the Pratapamitra was very devoted to Lord Chaitanya. He says, he became very distressed. Why should Lord Chaitanya go there? He should not go like this. And he said, I don't want those who are dear to Lord Chaitanya to be disturbed. And he said, Bhavana, the father of Gopinath, is very dear to me. And he said, their whole family is dear to me. I have no intention that they be punished like this. So then he said, you tell Lord Chaitanya that I will pay off all that is owed on Gopinath. And not only that, because he went through all this trauma, I will give you bigger position and bigger pay. So Lord Chaitanya, Kashi Mishra was a priest, he said, that is not Lord Chaitanya's intention. He doesn't want to interfere with your administration of the state. He said, yes, I understand that. And tell Lord Chaitanya, it's not that I did it to please him. I did it because I felt back that somebody close to Ram Bhavanand Rai, who is like a father figure for me, he had to go through all this. So then that then Gopinath, Ramanand Rai and Bhavanand Rai's father, they all came to meet the king. And the king honored by offering him a shawl and gave him a bigger post, bigger pay, waived off the debts. And then they all went to meet Lord Chaitanya. And when he told all that had happened, he said, my dear Lord, by your mercy all this happened. So Lord Chaitanya, before that, he asked Kashi Mishra and others, so what was Gopinath Patnaika doing? Gopinath doing? He just put on the changa. And not only did he put him on the changa, see what happens sometimes if the government wants to recover dues. The income tax department freezes not only the person's account, but the whole family member's account. So like this was like a 16th century income tax rate. So what he had done was he had got all the family members also arrested. So he said, so what was Gopinath doing? He said Gopinath was constantly chanting the names of Krishna. What was Ramanand Rai? What was Bhavanand Rai doing? He said he was also chanting and remembering Krishna and praying to Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya, on hearing this, he became very pleased. He became very pleased, and thereafter, when they came to meet him, they thanked him, by your mercy this happened. Lord Chaitanya said, it is not my mercy, it is Jagannath's mercy. But he added, he said that Jagannath, out of his mercy, may sometimes intervene and help you. But you should not create trouble for yourself. No, you should act responsibly. If you have a duty to do it responsibly. If you don't do it, if you act irresponsibly, if you get into trouble, don't expect that Jagannath will again and again come to your rescue. So then they all offered their obeisances to Lord Chaitanya and they left. So now there are many interesting points in the story. What Lord Chaitanya says is that sometimes somebody who is also a devotee, might do something wrong. If we do something wrong, we shouldn't expect or demand that just because we are devotees, all that wrong will be patched up. We don't use devotion as an insurance for our irresponsibility. Sometimes devotees drive very fast. They drive way above the speed limit. So I saw in an old magazine, I think it was in UK. So the magazine, like a local magazine, there's a cartoon, it said that when you drive above the speed limit, Krishna leaves the car. So if we get ourselves into trouble by being irresponsible, by being immoral, by being unreliable, by being negligent, then we can't demand that Krishna come and help. Now Krishna may help, that is his kindness, but a devotee doesn't demand that. A devotee understands that I need to behave properly. In the Mahabharata, Bhishma is one of the most fascinating characters. For many reasons. See, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are very popular epics. Among them, the Mahabharata is more complex. Because what happens is normally in any story there is a good side and a bad side. But the story gets greater moral complexity when there are good people on the bad side and there are sometimes bad people on the good side. So in the case of Mahabharata, Bhishma is like a very good person on the wrong side. So now Bhishma, he sticks to his word that I will always protect and support the ruler of Kurukshetra. Now when he took that vow, he never had thought that somebody as terrible as Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra as passive, as the pastor would take the role. But then what happened? He remained silent, or he did not, at least did not oppose strongly when Draupadi was being dishonored. And for a Kshatriya, who is going to protect others from injury, he remained silent. That was a serious mistake on his part. See, wrongdoing is not just the wrong that we do. Wrongdoing is also the right that we don't do. So he remained silent. And then what happened was, for that he became culpable. Now there are, any incident can be seen from multiple perspectives. So at one level, Bhishma, all the warriors on the Kaurava side died, but Bhishma, we could say, suffered most pain. Hundreds of arrows pierced through his body, and he lay on an arrow bed for weeks together. Other Drona, Duryodhana, Charan, they just killed over immediately. But he lived in excruciating pain. So now, from one perspective, in the Mara tradition, they give this perspective that what happened was, because he was the eldest person in the family and he was responsible, but he didn't act properly. So at a material level, he got the reaction for that. That's why he had to go through that painful process. But at the same time, because he was very devoted to the Lord, so the Lord came and gave darshan to him. Sakshat Krishna darshanam agataha. Krishna came and darshan to him. Of course, Krishna also came and gave him the absorption in him by which he could transcend the pain. So the point is that at a material level, if we do something wrong, there can be material consequences for that. If we are practicing bhakti, at a spiritual level we will be protected. At a material level there will be consequences. So Krishna did not overlook Bhishma's wrongs just because he was a demon. And Krishna did not overlook Bhishma's devotion just because he had done some wrongs. So both were reconciled. So now in the case of this Purushottam, in this case of Gopinath, what happened was he went through a severe scare because of what he did. There was like a lesson, don't do like this. Lord Chaitanya reinforced that lesson. So we don't use our devotion to justify improper behavior. We have various responsibilities, professional responsibilities, family responsibilities. We need to take care of those responsibilities. And by taking care of those responsibilities, we also practice bhakti. And if we are practicing bhakti and occasionally we do something wrong, the Lord will intervene, the Lord will help. But a devotee doesn't demand that. When Lord Chaitanya said that, these people are disturbing me, it's very interesting that normally most people, they go to God for what? Please give me this, please give me that, please give me that. Srila Prabhupada in one lecture, he says, how do you know whether you are Krishna conscious? How do you know whether you are actually a devotee? He says, when we come in front of the Lord, we come in front of Him and we feel the Lord is asking us, what are you doing for me? What service are you doing? What are you doing for me? If you feel like that on beholding the Lord, that means they are Krishna conscious. Now most people come in front of God and they ask, what are you doing for me? I have this problem, I have that problem, I have that problem. What are you doing for me? Now it's good to approach God for any reason. It's better than being atheistic. But the idea is, if we get into trouble ourselves and expect God to intervene and protect us, that is not responsible. That is not responsible, that is not devotional also. So a devotee needs to recognize the value of, the importance of morality in the practice of bhakti. A few more points and then we can ask question answers. So I talked about 3 modes of material nature. Now, depending on the modes, our vision of morality and our vision of spirituality will vary. So when somebody is in goodness, then they see, why should I be moral? Because being moral is not only a way to live harmoniously in the world, but it's also a way to grow spiritually. So So we see morality as a path to spirituality. Now when somebody is in passion, passion means the person is materialistic. So can somebody be materialistic and still be moral? It's possible. But for them, morality is more operational. Because you see, if I am honest with you, then you will be honest with me. And then both of us can function properly. So they say that morality as a tool to material pleasure, to material progress, to material well-being. And it's good. So even atheists can be good people. But when they are good people, it is not because of their atheism they are good. It is quite that there is nothing within the atheistic worldview to make people stick to morality. The ultimate big secret of atheism is that if there is no God, there is no ultimate accountability for our actions. So if I am clever enough to get away by doing something wrong, then why should I not do it? So atheists can be good people, but there is nothing within atheism to keep people good. Similarly, materialism, well, materialistic people can be good. So those who are in passion are largely materialistic. Materialistic people can also be moral. But there is nothing within materialism to keep them moral. So it is said that with materialism, morality is simply lack of opportunity. That means as long as I don't have the power, the position, the cleverness to do something wrong and get away with it, till that time I will want. But as soon as I get away with it, well, morality get lost. Something like that. Now, a person in ignorance, they just think about immediacy. What feels good to me, I'll do it. They don't care for morality, they don't care for spirituality at all. So the way we function is shaped by our modes. So when we start practicing bhakti, we might get introduced and we may start practicing, we may understand that there is God and start practicing bhakti. That may not change our modes immediately. That may not, we might be mostly living in passion and ignorance, and we might continue living like that in many aspects of our life. And sometimes we might justify that in the name of our spirituality. Because I'm spiritual, all this will be taken care of. Well, it's not like that. So, ideally speaking, how should it work? Our spirituality, the two can synergize together. Our spirituality strengthens our moral muscles, and our morality strengthens our spiritual practices. How does this happen? Our spirituality strengthens our moral muscles. That means we all are subjected to immoral temptations. Maybe make some quick money, maybe manipulate something, or maybe indulge in something and illicit, whatever. So then what happens? If we have spiritual knowledge, then we understand that at a philosophical level, actions have consequences. We may forget karma, but karma won't forget us. So our actions will have consequences. Not only that, if we are practicing spirituality, we also get some higher happiness. And that higher happiness that comes from our connection with Krishna helps us to resist the lower pleasures. And that's how moral muscles refers to muscles. If I have to lift a heavy weight, like how strong our muscles are determine how much we can lift. But sometimes immoral temptations attack us, and we need the moral muscles to resist, to push against them. So spirituality strengthens our moral muscles. So that's how spirituality can nourish morality, and the morality can also strengthen our spiritual practices. What will happen overall? If we are moral, broadly speaking, morality means that we live in harmony with material reality. Spirituality means we live in harmony with spiritual reality. Say for example, somebody takes vegetarian food. That's the way our body is broadly designed. So we are much more vulnerable to many more diseases if we are eating food that is incompatible with our body's basic constitution. So when we are in harmony with material reality, what happens is that the material things don't consume too much of our time or attention, and then we have more time and attention available for spiritual practices. So generally, if we speak lies, And what happens? We speak one lie, and then one lie leads to 10 lies. And then 10 lies leads to 100 lies. And then you have to remember all the 100 lies that you have spoken to keep the whole story together. So what happens is, it's relatively, if you're moral, life stays, it may not be easier, but life stays simpler. It doesn't become that complicated. So when we are moral, morality helps us to do our spiritual practices better. Morality decreases the distractions in our life. And broadly speaking, when now morality doesn't just mean following moral rules. Morality is just right behavior. So when we are interacting with people, generally if we learn to be kind, if we learn to be gentle, if we learn to be sensitive, if we learn to be courteous, what happens by that? Our relationships stay relatively smooth. Now, sometimes the other person might behave unreasonably also, and that might worsen the relationships. But at least from our part, we're not doing anything to worsen the relationship. So if we behave properly, then what happens? Our mind is not that agitated. Because generally, if any relationship tension happens, the first casualty of relationship conflicts is our chanting. Whenever we have any tension in a relationship, when we sit down to do our meditation, start chanting Hare Krishna. We are chanting Hare Krishna, thinking in the mind, why did this person do that? Why did he do like that? So, our mind will stay agitated. So, the more we learn to behave properly, the more we can keep our relationships at a reasonably smooth level. We can't keep them always smooth, but at least we don't make them worse than they need to be. And then that enables us to focus on our spirituality. When Prabhupada was asked in an interview once that, how do we know your followers? What is the defining characteristic of your followers? So Prabhupada replied, they are perfect gentlemen and ladies. And it's very interesting. Prabhupada didn't say that they chant 16 rounds, they follow the Four Great Principles. No, they do this, they do that. This was a newspaper which is interviewing him. The newspaper doesn't, people they don't care how many rounds you chant or how many shlokas you know or what rules you follow. No, ultimately what they are going to look at is, what people are going to look at in general is how we be. So if we learn, if we recognize the importance of proper behavior and learn to behave properly, as much as is possible for us in our situation, we'll see that our life will become less complicated and we'll be able to focus on our spirituality. And in this way, morality and spirituality can both move together. So the more moral we are, the more spiritual we can be. And the more spiritual we are, the more moral we can be. So when the behavior and the beliefs are all aligned together, then we become most effective. We can not only transform ourselves effectively, we can also become agents for inspiring others to become transformed. So I'll summarize. I spoke today on this topic of morality, spirituality, and responsibility. And I started by talking about the four quadrants. Remember? People, four categories of people. Those who are immoral materialists. Those who are, you remember four categories? Immoral materialists, then moral materialists, then immoral spiritualists, and moral spiritualists. So which is the best category to be in? Moral spiritualists. Yes, moral spiritualists. Thank you. Then I phrased it another way, that people in today's world, they don't care. I don't tell you what you believe. Show me how you behave. So then we present the same thing in terms of the right belief and the right behavior. If somebody has improper belief and improper behavior, then we repel from them. If somebody has the proper belief but the improper behavior, then what happens? We get repelled not only from them but repelled from their beliefs also. If somebody is spiritualist and they behave wrongly, then we get, I don't want to do this whole spirituality business. If somebody has the wrong beliefs with the right behavior, then what happens?
They get attracted towards
We
material.
are attracted to their wrong beliefs. And then, if we have the right beliefs and the right behavior, then we become agents for transforming. We attract people to the beliefs and values that will help them become transformed. Then I talked about why would it be that somebody who is a spiritualist might behave immorally? Should a spiritualist be automatically moral? Then I talked about functional and foundational values. It's like spirituality tells us where to drive our car, but morality is about how we drive the car. So, just because knowing the right destination doesn't automatically mean we become good drivers. We may have to consciously exercise to learn that driving skill. So I talked about several, mainly I talked about the story of Gopinath Pattanayaka, how because of his misappropriating some funds, he got into a lot of trouble. And he was saved, but he got a real scare. And Lord Chaitanya told him that don't be irresponsible, don't misappropriate funds like this. So the idea is, Lord Chaitanya told him that the Lord may come to Jagannath came to rescue you, but don't expect or demand that on the regular basis. So the Lord said, be moral. So Krishna also said in the Bhagavad Gita, the devotees who are also behaving properly, who have behavioral virtues, they become very dear to me. And then lastly concluded by talking about how morality and spirituality can go together. That if you have spiritual knowledge and spiritual practices, then that uses the wisdom and the inner satisfaction by which we can resist immoral temptations. It strengthens our moral muscles. And if we practice morality properly, that means we live in harmony with the broad way of society, then what happens is our life doesn't become unnecessarily complicated. And we can focus on our spiritual growth. And that's how morality and spirituality can go together. When they go together, we grow spiritually and we become agents to inspire others also to grow spiritually. Thank you very much. So, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, bro. Thank you very much for your class. It's very nice. Bro, I have one question regarding yesterday you covered the coronavirus, and there's so many other viruses out there, and the health system has so much they can do immunizations and things like that for these viruses. A lot of these immunization medicines, they have fetal bovine serum, which is cow blood, as their base. So what is the opinion on this? Should devotees, especially now when there's a lot of risk involved, should devotees be immunized and take immunizations, even these flu vaccines and things like that are there? Or should devotees avoid them because of the fetal bovine serum?
Good question. This was supposed to be my class next year when I come. So for example, the question is that if there are some vaccines which are some immunizations which say involves cow bones or something, cow blood.
Fetal bovine serum.
Okay, bovines. Then should we take them? So basically, it's this morality which talks about values, and ethics is something similar. But ethics is about the hierarchy of values. There are many values that are important in our lives, and sometimes we have to decide: is this value more important or that value more important? So, for example, I said, if you speak lies, it just gets us into trouble. So yes, we should speak truth. But then, suppose there are some violent rioters who are coming who are after one of our friends. That friend comes knocking at our door, hissing. And then we conceal that friend in our basement. And those rioters come and knock at our door. Is he here? What should we do at that? Now, to understand this, we have to look at the hierarchy of values. Speaking truthfully is important. But protecting someone's life is even more important. So the hierarchy of values means we understand which value is more important and which value is less important. So that is ethics. That is ethics. So now broadly speaking, there are two kinds of ethics. There is categorical ethics and there are contextual ethics. So categorical ethics means that right and wrong are just two distinct categories. Whatever falls in this category is always right. Whatever falls in that category is always wrong. So speaking truth is always good. Speaking lies is always bad. There are two moral categories. That's all that is good. Now contextual ethics means that these two overlap. That it's not always that this is right and that is wrong, but there can be shades of gray in between. And when this happens, then we have to look at the context to see which ethics will lead to what kind of result. So here, we can't just say, okay, I'm going to speak the truth. I have to look at the consequence. What will happen if I speak the truth? So basically, skip one slide, let's finish. Okay, for the time being. See, basically, when we look at the context, essentially, we look at the action, we look at the intent behind the action, and we look at the consequence of the action. So contextual ethics means we think of three things: intent, content, and consequence. Whereas categorical ethics means we only look at the content. This is wrong, that's all. So applying this principle of contextual ethics to, say, this particular issue. So now, what is the principle behind, say, not eating meat? That is, that we shouldn't cause violence to other creatures just for satisfying our tongue. We can be nourished with a civilized human being who want to cause as less pain as possible to others. So we try to eat in a way that is least violent. So that is the intent. That is to cause less violence as possible. And certainly not cause violence just for the pleasure of our tongue. Now if we are taking a medication, the purpose of medication is not enjoyment. It is basically treatment. So then, here, we are not causing violence so that we can get some pleasure for ourselves. The intent is different. So in fact, Jiva Goswami says that, or Rupa Goswami says that, normally on Ekadashis, say we fast. But we fast from grains. But suppose somebody is sick and they have to take some medicines. And those medicines contain grains. Does taking medicines with grain, does it break the Ekadashi fast? It says no. Because you're not taking that just for enjoyment. So he says medication is taken for a different purpose. So even in Ayurveda, there are quite a few medications which involve non-vegetarian elements. So there are usually Ayurveda provides vegetarian alternatives to those also. But sometimes non-vegetarian medicine might also be the only thing that is available. So our intent in this case is not to enjoy, it's not to gratify our senses at the cost of immense pain to other people. And then we look at the consequence. So every life is valuable, but relatively speaking, in the evolutionary cycle, a human life is more valuable than a non-human life. Because the soul in the human life has the opportunity to evolve spiritually. And not so in that sense, protecting a human life at the cost of a non-human life. That is, if it is absolutely essential, that's the only way to do that, is acceptable. That is acceptable. And more importantly, that's not the only consequence. If you look at the consequence here, if somebody who is spiritually minded, or somebody who is human being, a conscious human being can not only grow spiritually, but they can also contribute materially to make a better world. That means, if somebody who is spiritually inclined or spiritually evolved, they survive, they live on, then they might be able to get so many more people to become spiritual and stop eating it. So my not taking that medication it's not going to make much difference. It's like how much of the animal killing am I stopping by that? Hardly anything. I mean, just like not even one drop of water in the ocean. But if we can live and we can become more spiritual and share spirituality, we can make a bigger difference in society. The consequence in this case would be much more significant if we live and share spirituality rather than we just refuse to take the medicine and then we end up losing our life. So again, this is not to justify the taking of the medicine. If there are alternatives available, we should always look for alternatives. And quite often, alternatives may be available also. But in principle, we need to understand that ethics are also categorical, not just context. So ethics are not just context categorical, they are contextual. And sometimes a smaller principle or a lesser value can be subordinated for pursuing a higher value. Okay? Yes,
My question wasn't really related to if one is sick. If somebody, my question wasn't really related to if someone's sick. If somebody's sick, then there's no question of having medicine that may have animal products. I mean, sometimes there's a heart bypass and things like that. You have to use the pig's valve. So that is to save lives. But in terms of vaccines, which are a choice that are given. So when the vaccines are given as a choice, because you might get the flu, you might get some other disease. There's no sure way you say you will get it, but it's just to immunize against it, just in case. So it is on that case, do we weigh up the risks? Basically, is that the answer?
That's a good question. So it's not so much for say curative purposes, for preventive purposes. We are having a vaccine. So at that time, what should we do? Again, in general, there is a universal aspect to spirituality, and there is a personal aspect of spirituality. So we can't have universal instructions for everyone. Everybody is a soul, everybody has their free will, and everybody has their own way of thinking. So we all want to move toward Krishna, but how do we do that? This is something which has to be individually decided. So some people, you could say broadly, some people are more adventurous, and some people are more cautious. And some people might take a lot of risks even in bhakti. But their taking risks in bhakti doesn't necessarily mean they have more faith in Krishna. No, they love risks. And they will take in their professional life, they will take in business, and they will take in bhakti also. They're just adventurous. And some people might be more cautious, they avoid risks in everything. They're very calm, they analyze, they plan, and they do things. And that's how they practice bhakti also. So now, in general, if we are working in a big project, we need both kinds of people. We need people with an adventurous spirit. Otherwise, we will never do something big and exciting and major transformation. But we also need people who are cautious. Because we also need to weigh the risk and don't want to be too hard. So I would say that this will vary. And if somebody is more an adventurous kind of person, they will say, let it go. Let Krishna take care. I will not take this vaccine. If somebody is more cautious, they say, let me take a vaccine. So we don't have to make these kind of things which are in spiritual life. There are principles and there are preferences. So these are preferences. When we make preferences into principles, we become fanatical. So there are preferences and there are different people who choose differently. And there is enough room in the spiritual path for that. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So I have this question. Nowadays, like government is saying to avoid large gatherings. So let's say, because we are going to hear Krishna Katha, even though if we are going and meeting in a large gathering, it should be fine. Because we are, is this how should we actually, what's the right way of thinking, because when to surrender actually? Is it a
Okay.
faith or a big risk that we are taking?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
So,
Hare Krishna.
so the government is now saying that don't go for big gatherings. So if you're going to hear about Krishna, should we just say that it's because it's for Krishna, Krishna will take care of everything? Well, at one level, there is risk in everything in life. So we have to look at a reasonable and calculated risk. So especially if say, at least in New Zealand right now, things don't seem to be it's not a pandemic here. But there are many other places in the world, say in India, in America, in UK, that you would temporarily shut down the programs. In fact, for the next 3-4 Sundays, I have got about 12 engagements from different parts of the world. They say we are all having online classes. So the Sunday program they are doing online now. So can you speak here, can you speak there, can you speak there? So now, being faithful doesn't mean being foolhardy. So if the risks go beyond a particular reasonable level, then it's not that we just neglect our intelligence and we just have faith in Krishna. It's not like that. See, for example, the Pandavas fought a war on behalf of Krishna. The war itself is a risk. So they were ready to take that risk for Krishna. But then when Chakravyuha was formed, then they didn't know how to break it. And they said only Abhimanyu knows about it. But they were really reluctant to send Abhimanyu inside because Abhimanyu said, I don't know how to come out. Then they made a plan. So you go inside, we will follow you. And then we will all together break the Chakravyuha inside. So they were not taking just Krishna will protect us. They had a plan. Unfortunately, Jayadratha came in the way. And he separated Abhimanyu from the Pandavas. So Abhimanyu had gone for a devotional cause. He was fighting for Dharma, but unfortunately he was slaughtered. Now the next day Arjuna went in. Because he wanted to get him into jail. He wanted to punish Jayadratha. And then Yudhishthira became anxious. What if Arjuna gets trapped? So then he sent Satyaki inside. He sent Bhima inside. And together they were Hekadok. So the point is that we all need to take risks. But we need to take reasonable risks. So if something goes, if things become alarming, then it's reasonable that we may not want to come for programs and be a part of the gatherings. But we don't have to be paranoid, constantly living in fear. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, just thinking about the contextual morality, in Mahabharat war, when in Mahabharat war, Yudhishthira had to tell that lie about Ashwatthama being dead, being dead. So for that, actually, towards the end of when they actually left the material world, Yudhishthira had to spend few moments in hell, and then he goes back to heaven. So does it mean that actually they are fighting war for the dharma only? So in this context, so even if it is a small lie, even though it is for moral purposes, does it mean that we still get karma? They still accumulate negative karma?
Okay. So Yudhishthira, when he lied about Ashwatthama being dead, because of that he had to see hell for some time. So is it that we as devotees, even if we do speak a lie for some good purpose, there will be some consequences? Again, there are multiple factors. Firstly, the same story can be analyzed from different perspectives. The Mahabharata and the Bhagavatam, they present it from different perspectives. The Mahabharata is largely talking about material piety and impiety, dharma and adharma from a material perspective. The Bhagavatam is talking from a pure devotional perspective. In the Bhagavatam's description of the Pandavas, there's no mention of they going to hell at all. Rather, they renounce the world and just go to spiritual world, not even to hell. So, from a devotional perspective, if a devotee stays devoted to the Lord, the Lord will deliver the truth and you will attain the ultimate spiritual truth. The Mahabharata is describing things from a different perspective. So now, this because the Mahabharata's essential point is that you live virtuously, you get virtuous results. You live viciously and you get temporal results. So that's the basic principle that it teaches. But when we say live virtuously, isn't that a person, a life in 99% virtuous? No, it's very difficult for anyone to live 100% virtuous. If 99% virtuous and 1% they do something wrong, so they get some results for that. Well, yes, they may. Now, was that, yes, Yudhishthira did have to see hell, but the Mahabharata itself is not very clear about why he had to see hell. It could also be because he gambled and lost all the wealth, he lost Draupadi. So it was just in a whole life of virtue, if somebody does an occasional wrong, there may be some consequences of that. But that doesn't mean all the good is undone because of that. So was it specifically because he spoke counterfactually at that time about Ashwatthama? There's no one-to-one correlation that is explicitly mentioned as far as in any Acharya. And this difference we understand, it could also refer to different kalpas. That the Mahabharata is describing the incidents in one particular cosmic cycle. And the Bhagavatam is describing incidents in another cosmic cycle. The cosmic the Lord keep repeating. And at each time things might be told with a different focus, from a different perspective. And the essential principle is that we are accountable for our actions. So in some cases if somebody does something wrong, when they get consequences, say at a material level consequences might come, but at a spiritual level one will be protected. It's like say we have the example of Jai Bharat. Bharat Maharaj renounced the world, but then he became attached to a deer. So at a material level, because of the attachment to a deer, he became a deer. And at a spiritual level, we say that anybody who practices spiritual life, their spiritual credits are never lost. Then did he not lose them? No, he didn't. He got a deer's body, but he did not get a deer's consciousness. Even in the deer's body, his consciousness was of a God in human being. And that's how he was associated with sages, hearing them chant the mantras, and he grew. So, in some ways, the material and spiritual run on parallel tracks. If I do something materially wrong, I have some material consequence of that. And if I do something spiritual right, I get spiritual benefits of that. In some cases, these tracks overlap, and the spiritual may intervene and protect us from the material consequences also. But a devotee doesn't necessarily always demand that.
Thank you.
Any last question? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. A few weeks ago, I was in Auckland with some devotees and we were in Harinam, and I was trying to distribute some books, and I was talking to one young man, and so we kind of explained what we are doing, and essentially his question is, how do you know what you are following is the truth? And he said, Christian people are saying things are a certain way, and Muslim people say things are a different way. Sometimes there's conflicting ideas. And he acknowledged that we have imperfect senses, and he brought up different points like the matrix and how can we judge. So essentially the question which I'm trying to ask is, could you share anything on that point? Is how do we know what we are doing is the truth or the true path?
So how can we, if somebody asks, how can we tell them, persuade them that what we are doing is the true path? Firstly, we don't have to claim any kind of monopoly on the truth. It is not that necessarily our path is the true path and all the paths are false paths. That the truth can be accessible through multiple paths. So the important thing is that it is, and when we are in material consciousness, tarko apatishthana shuddha yoga vidna, that tarko apatishthana, that simply by logic, it's impossible to establish anything as absolutely conclusive. So what do we do? Basically, every activity in life requires faith. Sometimes we talk about faith only in spiritual or religious terms. But, say now we are talking about the coronavirus. And if we take a medicine, say to prevent it or to if we have got the virus to eliminate it from our body, it's in experimental stage. We don't know whether it's going to work or not. And even the medicines that are actually mainstream already, even how do we know in advance they work or not? If a doctor prescribes, take this. When the doctor prescribes and we take the medication, it's an act of faith. You could say when we pop a pill in our mouth, it's a gulp of faith. So now, but it's reasonable faith. Reasonable faith is different from blind faith in two characteristics. It is sensible and it is verifiable. Right. Suppose I have a pain in the stomach. I go to the doctor and the doctor says, we have to amputate your leg. What? It doesn't make sense to me. No. So, I said, no, actually you are fascinating. Take these medicines. 3 days, you'll feel better. This is fantastic. Okay, that makes sense. So then, first, when somebody speaks something, we see whether what they're speaking makes sense. Whether it's sensible. And then when we talk about verifiability is also at various degrees. Krishna consciousness doesn't say that the only verifiability is that when we die we go to Krishna. That's who has seen what happens when we die. That's fine. But if we practice bhakti, the quality of our life will improve in this way. What will happen? Essentially, if you consider, and I said we don't claim monopoly on the truth, it's like we are at the bottom of a mountain and that's material consciousness. There's the top of the mountain, that is spiritual consciousness. There could be many paths which take people up the top of the mountain, up to the top of the mountain. There are different traditions. Now the important thing is, how do we know whether we are going up the mountain? Two things should happen. We should go further away from the bottom and come closer to the top. That means, if we are practicing a spiritual path that is potent, that works, then material ups and downs won't agitate us so much because we are rising to a higher level of consciousness. And as we are rising to a higher level of consciousness, we will experience spiritual peace, spiritual joy coming. So we will experience, we could say, detachment from matter and contentment in spirit. Bhakti pareshan bhav virakti. So this is the verifiability part. That means when we are not so shaken by ups and downs means we'll find that if we had certain unhealthy cravings, those cravings will start going away. Many people, they may be addicted, they may have some unwanted habits. And they just follow and start practicing. That compulsive attachment to matter, that goes down. And we start feeling more enriched internally, we start feeling more connected spiritually. So these two are the verifiability aspect. So broadly speaking, rather than, it's very difficult in today's world to establish to anyone that this is the true path. What we can say is that rather than saying this is true, we can say this is effective, this works for me. This is how it works for me. This is what I do. This is why I do it. And this is how it works for me. You can try it out. So rather than demanding faith, what we do is open a new option in their life. It's rather than do this, I should that there is a better way to do it. It's a more meaningful, purposeful way to do it. Rather than I telling you this is the truth, I'm giving you the equipments, the intellectual and practical resources by which you can discern whether this is the truth. Does that make sense? So thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Gaur Premanand.
Hari Hari.